I had a older, young, even some of the, young men. Like, it was amazing. And then, some of the other clients, it was like, wow, like how you can really
Impact the
impact and
lives.
touch lives. Because I think not only is it necessarily our skill level, Sister Khadija, as I'm sure you would already know and be able to attest to from whatever you've been doing and working with people, when
Yeah,
they sense
it's
a certain degree of
it's
sincerity
but
and
it's
that you really
different.
care,
It's different.
that makes a difference in a lot
Yeah.
of people. That's very touching.
But you know what?
And so,
But you know
but I
what?
like
Like,
what I'm saying in essence, without being long-winded
no.
on all of this, is that I was grateful for the opportunities and touching the lives that I was touching my little humble contribution.
Well,
So
I think
yeah,
that's
so
the
I'm
thing.
here.
Like, you
I'm getting a
do,
little bit. Say it again.
you do. I think that's the thing. You do touch lives, and that's what kind of got me. Because I've always been wondering. I became a teacher because of my first husband, our divorce or him leaving, and I wound up like figuring out, okay, how am I going to take care of this family, and be able to keep track of them too. So some opportunity came around to take, because I already had a degree, to become a teacher, and so I was like, okay, that's perfect. So I wound up going to Temple University and working on that. But I love being in the classroom. But when I got out here, and I also was an administrator, but it was very, very stressful in Philadelphia, like really stressful. But when I got out here, I started to see things, because it's on a smaller scale. I started to see the bureaucracy and the stuff that goes on behind the scenes and the political stuff, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like I can't believe like this is what happens as in school districts, and I started to see like you really spinning your wheels, like, and it's frustrating because okay, I'm a coach. I coach teachers that teach science. I coach teachers that teach ESL students. Usually I focus on mainstream, but then I also have to do a lot of professional development and train staff and work with groups and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm starting to see is that I'm doing this work, and then there's something going on behind the scenes that's messing it up. And it's almost like a political move. Like I worked at we have one of the schools that's really one of the top 100 schools in the country, Lincoln College Prep, and I work with an awesome principal there, and she gave me like a lot of power to work with teachers, and I was really like an administrator, but she gave me a lot of power to do things because she had to manage two different schools, and that school, because of the stuff that we did there, that school wound up almost at the top of the state. And all the tests and everything. And then I watched somebody political come underneath, pull her out of the school. And the superintendent told her, they told me I had to get you out of there. And I'm like, wow. How do you get a principal that's turning, like, that's really, like, got the school at the top of the darn state? How do you pull her out? And so I just, and it's just, like, a lot of nepotism, people that aren't qualified, in positions. It's just a mess. And I'm like, wow, I was an administrator in Philadelphia. I could wrap circles around you running a school. And you're somebody's friend or somebody's church member, so you're running a school, or you're in a sorority or a fraternity, because that's another end that I found out that's going on here. If you're in a fraternity or sorority, you have an end to being an administrator. So I'm starting to see all the stuff that goes on, and it's really, really frustrating. It really is. So I had gotten to a point where, like, why do I hate going to work every day? And so I wound up going to this university because I had been thinking about it for a long time. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And that was last year. And so I applied for their counseling psychology program. And one of my first classes was a career development. And we did like the whole career survey, which I had never done. And what I found out was that my top career path was like neuropsychology, clinical psychology. And I was like, okay, now I get it. That's why I don't like going to work every day. So, because education was like it was there, but it was at the bottom. So, yeah, it's really interesting to see what goes on behind the scenes now, which I never could see it in Philly because it's like 134 schools or 200 and some schools, and you don't see what goes on. But now, like I'm on a cabinet where I have to go to these network meetings with the superintendents and stuff, and you really get to see what goes on. And I just like have to shake my head. I'm just
Right,
like, wow.
I hear you. You know, one day when time really permits, I have to share with you a story regarding the whole political dynamics that kind of like blew my mind to some degree when I was actually a recipient of some of the politics, while not necessarily being naive or coming in blinded, but was still like, whoa.
Wow.
But I'll save that for another time. It wasn't anything that was how would I say? It wasn't anything that was necessarily it didn't lead to anything negative or bad in terms of consequences. It was just the dynamics of what was happening to the extent where I would say, wait a minute, this is kind of unbelievable. But I hear you. Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but it's part of the territory of, political dynamics. I think because, again, without getting too philosophical on it, that, the thing is to me, going beyond rhetoric, because a lot of people know how to talk that talk.
Yes, they do.
They're very good in terms of using the language. They know the nomenclature. They know how to talk very polished. They know how to present. But in terms of the integrity and ethics and morality, that is what I think is oftentimes missing. Because you will find people who are caught up into that kind of surreptitious activities and all of that negative politics, but yet when you listen to the rhetoric of how they talk when they're giving a presentation, when they're talking before faculty and parents and the community, they sound good. But, as in anything, it's always in the final analysis, what are the practices?
Right. And you can see it, and especially when you're so close to people, like even within my department, like where our department is, the Department of Language Services and Cultural Equity. But within our department, there's microaggressions going on, there's biases going on among the people that I work with. And I'm looking at this stuff and identifying it now because I know how to identify it. I'm like, wow, this is really deep. So my director walks in and she walks right past me like I don't exist and has a conversation with another Caucasian person. I'm like, wow. But we're, and I'm seeing all this kind of stuff going on, and I'm like, this is really crazy. So, yeah. And people aren't aware of it. And the same thing happens in schools with teachers. Like, they inflict their biases on students, and they don't even realize it. And I've made pretty close relationships with a lot of teachers I work with. I call them out on it. And they're like, I did that for real. I was like, yup, yes you did. Yes you did. That's like really prejudice. So, I mean, in a way that's a good thing because I can make a change that way. But like, so how much do therapists make there, or how do you bill? And I'm not going to keep asking questions, but...
No, but by the way, again, it's okay. It's all good. It's all good, like I said. So it depends. Obviously, now if you're in private, that's really where you're going to get more money because obviously, when you're connected with an agency, you're getting a percentage. So, like for an example, if their insurance company is charging, or the agency is able to charge, I'm just using this as a hypothetical. Okay. Let's say for that session, the agency is getting anywhere between, let's say, $100 to $120 or whatever. You're getting a fraction of that based on how you contract with the agency for your hourly fee. Then some agencies do what you call quote unquote fee for services. So they won't necessarily pay you an hourly rate. They'll pay you based on how many clients that you saw and how long that session was. So that terminology that we've used in New York is fee for services. Okay. So some agencies, again, they'll just contract you, but they may have certain kind of expectations that you maintain certain levels of contact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. So what does that translate in a yearly salary, though?
Well, for me, what I did is because for many years I was doing the clinical stuff as an adjunct to what I was was doing in the Department of Education.
Okay.
Versus, so I contracted for fee for services. At one point, I was getting, but they changed it because at one point, I'm just thinking out loud.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Like I'll just use the other last place that I worked at as a base. So for an hourly session, the fee for services there, I think was we were getting, I think, $35 for a session.
Really?
Which is really which is still like a small percentage of what you would get if, per chance, like I said, you of course was doing it privately. And let me see, like a half an hour session, I think was $25. But here's another thing that they did at the agency that I was at. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember these numbers, even though it wasn't that long ago. They looked at, for an example, if the clinician had like their LCSW and how many years they were in the field, and then how many years they worked with the clinic, would dictate what their rate would be on the fee for services. Mm-hmm. Juxtaposition, for an example, to let's say a clinician who was a licensed master social worker, right, who didn't yet have their certification yet, mm-hmm, but they had their master's degree. Mm-hmm. And again, based on either a combination of their longevity in the field, and then again their longevity with the agency. But initially coming in, some clinicians was able to negotiate their salary, but as a general rule, they looked at your credentials, mm-hmm, and your contract rate or fee for service rate was based on what your credentials was, and then it can be escalated based on how long you now were with the clinic. Mm. Okay. Yeah.
So, what does that translate into?
But there were other places. Now there were other places because I know oftentimes in speaking with fellow clinicians, colleagues, that because they really like the last place I was at, which I think I gave you the name of the director, Miss Harry. She started that agency herself because she wanted to provide services. She felt that there was a vacuum in terms of services for people of African American as well as African Caribbean descent, etc. Mm-hmm. And she wanted to produce or provide for services that were culturally sensitive, minus the stigma, etc., etc. So she was able to get
I like that you said
credentialing from the State Department of Mental Health, which is very difficult these days to do that as a regular agency because most of the agencies out there, particularly in New York, as we speak currently, they're like major places, like they're connected with a hospital, right, or some very big institution. For a person to privately do that now is almost unheard of. So she came in at the right time because I don't know if one can really do that now, in spite of how nice and dynamic the mission statement and vision may sound. But be that as it may,
what agency is this again?
This is Beverly McHarry Consulting Services.
So how do you manage to deliver? Because I like what you said, and that's true. There's a lot of ethnicities that look at counseling or receiving any type of therapy as something that they just don't do or they don't need, or it's stigmatized, and so they don't even reach out. So how do you reach out to people like that? Because in my paper I wrote that, in addition to being in private practice, I also want to do outreach work because there are people, and everyone has a right to have a healthy existence and to be educated. And a lot of times people that are of the lowest socioeconomic class don't have that opportunity. They don't know. So I could go out and reach out to organizations and churches and community centers and things like that, and do kind of, and talk and have sessions or talk, just educate them on, so or has like little mindfulness Mondays or something like that where.
Absolutely, and that to me sounds like a brilliant idea. And actually, what you did just articulate and convey there, Sister Khadijah, is the way that you would do something like that. How a lot of people came to us via that agency because a good number of our clients are of quote unquote has been of a lower quote unquote socioeconomic status. But then we had those who were more, upscale economically. So we did have a broad mix, but if we were to really look at demographics and to look at what was the norm, it probably would range between the lower to, maybe like basic lower middle class, so to speak, for lack of that terminology. But then again, you did have those who were a little bit more upscale, who may have had professional positions, et cetera, and was really doing quite well economically. But they were not, as a rule, the norm. How we got a lot of people who we probably would not have seen in terms of them taking the initiative and coming voluntarily was through referral services, such as, of course, you probably could figure this one already out.
No, I have not.
No, I'm saying I could project that you can anticipate the referral service I'm about to say is where we got a lot of clients who may have normally not come to us, and that is through the referral from the child. If they were if a parent, for an example, had gotten to an issue where there were allegations of child abuse and or neglect. So we got clients in that instance. We got clients who got into some infraction where they needed to have services that included like anger management, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of clientele came as a result of some form of domestic abuse. And, one of the things that, in terms of even doing a domestic violence group, one of the things that we always looked at with the group is looking at stereotypes connected to domestic violence, where people may think that there may be more of a prevalence or maybe more pervasive amongst people who are of lower socioeconomic status, and that's not true. But what I would say is that I do believe one of the stresses for some people who are involved in those situations may actually be certain economics, but that's never an excuse, though. So I say that to say, so we had a lot of clientele of, like I said, from different socioeconomic status that would come to us through that way too, whereas they were mandated for certain kinds of services. So the group services was obviously based on, for an example, it was anger management or domestic violence. They had to participate in a group, and or in some instances, it could be done in individualized therapy. But of course, we followed kind of like the protocol of most mental health facilities, where we would, of course, do an intake assessment, which tended to be quite comprehensive, and it required normally at least 3 visits. And
wow, I didn't know that.
Then based on the assessment, it would be determined whether they would be in group exclusively, or if it was being recommended that they also participate in individualized therapy also.
Wow.
So that's how we sometimes got people to come, sometimes from their job. I've had instances where a job referred a client to us because they, may have done something in their employment where they now needed like some form of anger management. So our referral source was a source that brought people in, and particularly from, I would say, I'm using this terminology in quotes, of the lower socioeconomic realm. A lot of our clients came through the referral sources, where they may have normally not come to get services, and a lot of them come, obviously, in those instances, they're coming with defenses, like, I really don't want to be here. They're there reluctantly because it's being mandated. But then, sometimes based on the delivery of how effective we may have been in the delivery of services, they become invested. But that's not always the case, though. But sometimes once they give a chance, they services and end up becoming, contingent on certain things and factors like long-term clientele.
Really? So then,
Yeah.
like, you had success as far as the relapse goes, and sorry, having a need so, oh gosh, what did I want to ask? So how do you connect with referral services? And this is jumping over. If you go into private practice, would you consider having a partner?
Oh, definitely. In fact, in reference to your question, there was one time when I was because I was with Beverly McCary Psychotherapy and Psychiatric Consulting Services, aka, Beverly McCary Consulting Services, BMAs is probably would normally abbreviate it.
Mm-hmm.
When I initially came there, I was with them for well over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came to them, initially you was like really being contracted.
Mm-hmm.
And you was really like an independent practitioner, but you was getting your referral from them, and you was using their space. So it was almost like you was, in a sense, you was like your own business, so to speak.
Okay.
And then at one point, it evolved to the point where we had to become a limited liability corporation. And I think a lot of that had to do with, I guess from the companies and in terms of how they were doing their thing on their end with the taxes. Because when I came there, the first several years though, they wasn't, because you were like considered like your own company. You was like being an individual practitioner, like in private practice, but you were contracting your services, and they were the ones who were providing you with the clientele. So of course we had to also sign a contract saying that if you was to leave them, you would not take the clients with you. So there was always that stipulation.
Well, how could they tell? I mean,
then that ends up really then being a level of, your own personal, your professional integrity. That if you agree to that you'll still honor that code of ethics.
So you would, if somebody came to you, you would turn them down then?
Well, what I'm saying though is like if you in the contract, it would say that if you was to leave the company, that you would not take that person into your own private practice. So you really, I think as a code of ethics, again, not be appropriate to tell them, well, I'm going to be doing private practice at this place and that place.
Right, okay.
If they later discovered you, but it wasn't based on you trying
to pull them out,
I wouldn't necessarily see that as a conflict of interest. But if you volitionally and knowingly told them,
okay,
and that kind of like would be a little bit violation. But the point really that I really was really trying to make here is that we also at one point, like I said, was also had to get we had to become like a limited liability corporation. LLC, and at that time, Khadijah, that's where the money was looking good because it wasn't taking taxes out. So you would now have to file in your tax returns, like there's another kind of form that you do that because you're like as a business. But then, eventually, it evolved into another situation where you now had to be an employee. So we went through some over the course of that time frame with Beverly McCary, and that's why it has in it the name consultant. Is it went through a number of changes where it evolved basically where you was like as if you were quote unquote in private practice, and when you got paid, you was just paid without like the taxes wasn't taken out.
Okay, right, and so you're responsible because that's what my son has to do, and he worked for a woman, it's a sister that has agency. She's out in Buckhead. It's a really big agency, but she is known, and this is something that he's found. People, especially our people that have agencies, they're known for not paying their people, and doing all kind of underhanded financial type of things. And this woman wound up owing him $35,000. He had to take her to court. And from what he told me, it's like this happens a lot with the people that work for her agency. Like she wasn't paying them, But she was doing something with the money because she's getting like he said her office is in Buckhead, in a big office building. Like it's not like and she has a whole floor, so it's not like she's hurting or whatever. But she's mismanaging her finances, and he won the case and got all his money, but it took several.
Oh, good for him.
It took several
Good
years. Yeah, because he was like, no, I can't let this go. you
Right.
know.
No doubt.
But and that's not the first time he's worked for several agencies where that happened, and I think that's really unfortunate.
Absolutely. Right, and Khadijah, to go more straight to your question though, because you asked, have I ever been in regular private, or I would say, I guess the word would be here, conventional private practice. Me and what I consider a partner. When I ended up developing the LLC, being a little limited liability corporation. There was a young lady who was, she contracted as a supervisor, and she and I developed a really wonderful relationship, collegially speaking, and we both respected each other's knowledge base and so forth and so on. So we agreed to start our own practice together. And initially, what we were trying to do is that she still lived with her mother in the borough of Queens, and her mother had allowed her to have a part of the house. So we had, put everything together. We did our mission statement, business plan, the whole 9 yards. And so, we then started, marketing to the different insurance companies. And what became somewhat of an obstruction to us being able to really move forward ahead was that you had to have what you call like wheelchair accessibility, which would have meant that she had to, they would have had to do some modifications on her mother's house, etc. And somehow that kind of like became a little bit cumbersome, and we really didn't at that time have the finances to try to rent from another place, and so that kind of fell through. So
yeah,
that's the furthest that I got. So I always said to myself too, because I had known that I was able, that I was not going to stay with the DOE after a certain point of time. And I said, maybe at a certain point in time, I would then, develop the private practice.
So you have to market, because in talking, like I don't know, I also feel as though if I'm way behind on this application for NYU, but I feel as though just listening to you, I feel as though I'm going to have a better education and a better foundation by attending someplace back on the East Coast. I mean, there's so many. It's the Beck Institute. It's like all these places right there between New York and Philadelphia. University of Penn. That's my alma mater. One of my that I did my administrative training and I also did master's in chemistry education. So like, and they have like the positive.
So if I could just interject here, Sister Khadijah, say that credential again that you have in science.
Oh, well, I didn't finish the program, but because I didn't finish the program because I realized that I needed to affect more people than just in my classroom. So one of my colleagues, I did a year and something of the master's in chemistry education.
That's awesome. And where did you do that again?
That's at the University of Penn. And then
Wait, Khadijah, I'm sorry. I know you just go, but that's awesome.
Well, you know what? They don't think it's awesome here.
So you have a scientific mind.
I have, yeah. And so, well, I graduated from.
Impressive.
I graduated.
Excuse me, I'm just a little bit in awe. I'm sorry.
No, it's on. I put the stuff on Facebook is true, but no, I graduated from. It used to be called Beaver College, but it's called now Arcadia University with a degree in biology. And my intent was to become a doctor, but I got married and all that. But now I don't really.
Say it again. From what now?
It's Arcadia. My undergrad is from Arcadia University, so I have a degree in biology. I have a BA in biology, and and then I went to Temple to get my master's in curriculum and instruction. But from there, I got accepted to the University of Penn for the master's in chemistry education. And from there, I got accepted to the what was it called, the Aspiring Principals program at the time. So I switched over, and one of my colleagues like, let's do this. I'm like, I'm in this program. He's like, no, let's go this program. And I really want. He said we could affect more people. So I applied, and I got accepted to that one. So I finished that. Met the aspiring principals program. Then I came here, and there was a big thing. It was a big argument with the Department of Education and my credentials from Philly, and they were telling me that my certification was expired. And I tried to explain to them, no, it's not. Just because it has this date does not mean it's expired. I have to actually work a certain number of years on this, and they kept telling me it was expired. So I kept getting threatened to get fired and all that. So I wound up having to go back to school and take all these classes, and I wound up going to MU, University of Missouri, Columbia, and getting my endorsement in ESOL or TESOL. And then I had to take other courses, and then the Department of Education apologized and realized that they had made a mistake. So I did that. So and then now I'm at Avila University for a master's in counseling psychology. But I just don't feel as though, and not that it's not rigorous, I don't feel as though I'm getting the knowledge base or having a richness of information I could get if I was in a different location, like a location that I really expect to work.
So I totally understand what you're saying in terms of that underpinning foundation. I got you.
Yeah, and this is like my classes. Like now, I'm writing this paper. It's like I'd much rather have. I mean, we had 2 case studies we had to write up, but I would have preferred to have to write a case study for a lot of these therapies that we're going over than have to write a paper. Like writing a paper to me is busy work. It's like I'm doing busy work. I need to be able to apply it, and so I mean I just feel as though it would be better based on what I'm hearing you say, and I know you went to NYU, right?
Correct.
So I just feel as though there's so much information there. There's so many institutes there that I could actually do extra training.
Right.
To kind of hone my skills, and then
right, because and to interject with what you're saying, Khadijah, I think a key component is if the program has like an internship where you have a combination or marriage of theory of what you're hearing in the classroom, and then the laboratory of actual practice with clientele.
Well, there's an intern.
That to me, I think is the essence of a really good program, because what it does, it now allows you to see and live in action what works.
Yeah, there's an internship.
To be out there in the front lines, doing it as part of your actual educational curriculum, because in the final analysis, they say there's 3 ways that we learn, as Brother Huey Newton used to say from the Black Panther Party. He said there's 3 ways we learn. We learn through study, through observation, and experience. But of all of those 3 ways that we learn, the most effective, I think, is through experience. I still think that it is a truism that experience is our best teacher.
Right.
But I will also say, though, that all 3 methods are actually the most ideal. But if you had to isolate the 3, even though, all 3 should be interrelated, experience is really the icing on the cake and becomes our most profound teacher for sure.
Right.
It's just like, not that I need to, elaborate on this. If you wanted to learn how to play basketball, well, let's take with your relative. He's doing football, right?
Yeah, my grandson.
Yeah, your grandson, right. So he could read a book about football, and he will learn something about football.
Right.
And he can even just go to a game,
right,
in person or whatever, and observe people playing football, and he can learn something from that.
Yeah.
But you know how he's really going to learn is by being on a team and doing it himself, getting tackled and tackled, and that's going to be his most profound teacher. But it's still good to do the other components too. So I say all of that to say, I just wanted to try to punctuate the point there, is that a program that has that there, that's good. Like for an example, but I was at NYU School of Social Worker, so my first year actually was in the quote unquote hood in the community, and oh my goodness, the nature of the kind of presenting issues that came here,
Really?
there's no way that you're not going to get a good foundation.
Really?
From all of the different things that, people may have been presenting with, and I say that, in a respectful manner.
No, I know.
I say it affectionate. I'm talking about when people having homicidal ideations, from people coming in there with, unfortunately though, with self-harm issues in terms of suicidal ideations and some of their history, people who may have issues in terms of having been incarcerated and trying to reintegrate back into the society. The whole 9 yards, issues, even though it may not have been their primary diagnosis or problem, but, the whole drinking issues, using, unprescribed chemical mood changes, et cetera, to, other situations that we would may have considered to be, quote, unquote, using layperson's terminology, bizarre. But in dealing with that, some of those extremities, and then some of the things that was not extreme, but then you're dealing with people who are dealing with so many of what I call social dynamics that may have caused their coping mechanisms to decompensate and precipitate the need for professional intervention. And that's why I thought, even though the therapy definitely has its place, but I realized in many instances that a lot of people may have had that quote-unquote psychiatric emotional breakdown, not necessarily due to intrapsychic, deficiencies, but a lot of times it was contingent, on a lot of what they were dealing with that we call stresses that will break so many people down.
But what about, then we get into Freud, and what about the fact that he says that, I believe this because I've lived this, and actually I'm healing from it. I healed myself from this, not realizing that's what I was doing. But now with the knowledge base, I'm healing my family because I see it perpetuated, because of dysfunction that actually happened in my marriage, that transferred to our kids, and that they actually did, because it was wow, this is really deep. But what about childhood trauma? And what about unresolved trauma and things that happen in your childhood